comment,
and subscribe for more content.
Where's the notification bell?
It's to the right of you.
Oh.
Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, what's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Podcast, the very first fandom-related podcast of 2022. I am DK Wrestler.
And I am MD Shady.
And today, as specifically titled, our podcast is May the Force Be With You, the Star Wars podcast, which is going to be an exciting one. If you're a fan of Star Wars, that's good. If you're a fan of Funko Pops, that's good. But if you're a fan of both, then that's even better, because we are talking about Star Wars, the very first Star Wars film, by the way, A New Hope, made in 1977, where in this podcast, we will talk about the movie overall and our opinions of it. We'll talk about the Funko Pops and what we want to see next in the essentially A New Hope lineup, which not all of the pops from this specific movie will be discussed, because there was actually like a ton of A New Hope pops. Like when looking through the list of A New Hope pops, there was as much pops for this movie as there was for how many pops Funko did for all of the sequel movies, which there was just a ton of pops from those movies also. So to discuss about all of the pops for A New Hope would just take a while. So we took kind of key moments, and especially if there were characters a part of a movie moments or something, then we would just mention the pops of those essentially, unless otherwise we'd have to like introduce a character, then we would essentially just add those characters singular pops, and especially pops like the Artist Series Darth Vader's won't be discussed. The holiday Star Wars pops aren't going to be discussed, especially the concept series aren't going to be discussed. And a huge disclaimer is that actually these will probably be announced by the time this podcast gets released, is that the 2022 Star Wars Celebration Pops will not be discussed on this podcast, since we are recording this actually April 15th, Good Friday. At this time, we don't know yet what the Star Wars Celebration Pops are, and we know that there is somewhat of a leaked list out there at the moment of Star Wars Celebration Pops. So fortunately, if there's any relating to A New Hope, those won't be discussed. So Star Wars A New Hope, or A New Hope, or Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, was released May 25th, 1977, so almost 19 years before my birthday, with a budget of $11 million and the box office at $775.8 million, making a profit of $764.8 million, which is just completely insane. I think that was actually a bigger profit margin than Empire Strikes Back, which we also did a podcast on 2 years ago here on a Funko Podcast, which here is a brief plot summary as provided by a user over on IMDb. Luke Skywalker stays with his aunt and uncle on a farm on Tatooine. He is desperate to get off this planet and get to the academy like his friends, but his uncle needs him for the next harvest. Meanwhile, an evil emperor has taken over the galaxy and has constructed a formidable Death Star capable of destroying whole planets. Princess Leia, a leader in the resistance movement, acquires plans of the Death Star, places them in R2-D2, a droid, and sends him off to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. Before he finds him, R2-D2 ends up on the Skywalker's farms with his friend C-3PO. R2-D2 then wanders into the desert, and then when Luke follows, they eventually come across Obi-Wan. Will Luke, Obi-Wan, and the two droids be able to destroy the Death Star, or will the Emperor rule forever? Which I guess I'll mention about my opinion first about A New Hope. I think A New Hope is probably my least favorite movie of the original trilogy. I do like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi better. And if I were to rank all 9 of the main, I guess you can say, Skywalker Saga movies, I'd probably place this 5th out of all of the 9 movies, which is about the middle of the list, which I still think is pretty decent. I felt like there was quite a bit of flaws, especially rewatching the movie. And then there were funny one-liners, though. Like there was the scene in the Death Star where Leia mentions about Chewbacca, "Someone get this walking carpet out of my way." I thought that was a funny one-liner. And I know Han Solo's done a couple of funny one-liners in the movie also. But one of those big flaws about this movie, especially rewatching it on Disney Plus, is those randomly added CGI scenes that I know for a fact were not in the movie previously, at least when I watched it as a kid. Especially there's a scene with Han Solo and he's with Jabba the Hutt, and then there's also Boba Fett. I know for a fact that that was not in the original A New Hope movie, and that it was some sort of scene that was added for the Disney Plus version. Because I know that Jabba the Hutt does not make his debut until Return of the Jedi, and Boba Fett does not make his debut until Empire Strikes Back. So, MD, let's hear your thoughts about A New Hope.
I always loved A New Hope. Obviously, it is the first Star Wars movie, so it is a classic, and there's so many iconic scenes from this movie. Probably the most iconic scenes from like all of Star Wars. Let's say if there's like 10 iconic scenes from Star Wars or something like that, this movie's got like 7 or 8 of those top 10 iconic scenes. So it is a really important movie, and I did also go back and watch it a few weeks ago. God, is it ever slow? It was kind of hard to watch. Obviously, it is a great movie, but comparatively to a lot of, especially with the newer movies, how fast paced they are, I guess. It's a really slow movie. The battle scenes, like the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, that seemed really kind of not great either. I guess it's because obviously in 77 and being the first movie, they didn't know what was going to come of Star Wars. So it's kind of weird that way. Overall, I do like the movie, and it's like the kickoff movie to one of my favorite film franchises of all time.
All right, so how this podcast is going to go is exactly how we did the Empire Strikes Back podcast. Is it's going to be divided into 3 sections, which are titled Star Destroyer / Tatooine is the first section. We got Mos Eisley as the second section, and then Death Star as the third section. So we might as well kick off with the first section of Star Destroyer and Tatooine, because that's basically how it kicks off. So I will talk about essentially parts of what happens in the movie, and then we'll go into talking about Funko Pops during these sections. So first off, A New Hope kicks off with the Rebel Alliance attempting to escape the clutches of the Galactic Empire, but are shot down and are taken over by the Star Destroyer. Rebel Alliance members are exchanging shots with stormtroopers, which leads to the appearance of one Darth Vader, who seeks the stolen plans of the Death Star. The droids C-3PO and R2-D2 manage to escape the ship by taking an escape pod after Princess Leia stored the plans with a message inside of R2-D2. The pod would land on the system known as Tatooine. Meanwhile, Darth Vader captures Princess Leia for the time being, which we might as well talk about 4 Funko Pops at the moment. So first off, we got to talk about Darth Vader, one of the main antagonists of Star Wars, a cyborg-like Sith Lord who is a member of the Galactic Empire. We're going to talk about the Stormtrooper Funko Pop, which is a type of soldier for the Galactic Empire. Princess Leia, also known as Leia Organa, is a political and military leader for the Rebel Alliance from the system Alderaan. And we're going to talk about C-3PO and R2-D2, but more specifically, not their singular pops, but in the Walmart exclusive escape pod landing movie moments that was a part of the 40th anniversary Star Wars lineup, which of course C-3PO is a gold protocol droid and is fluent in over 6 million ways of communication. R2-D2 is an astromech droid who is often adventurous and gets himself into trouble from time to time. Of course, in this moment, this is where they land on Tatooine and then kind of get into an argument which leads to them going their separate ways, which kicking off, we'll talk about the Darth Vader pop and how it's so weird to look back at how this pop looked compared to what Darth Vader pops look like now. I mean, Darth Vader, one word to describe him is a badass. He is my favorite character in the entire Star Wars series. I do have this Darth Vader pop with the blue box. It's pretty decent. I mean, over time, you do see how Darth Vader pops have evolved, like I mentioned, but it's still pretty decent for the time that it's been made. The Stormtrooper pop, however, is still one of the more cringy pops, at least in my opinion. And it's not because of the way the body is, but mainly because of how they added Funko Pop eyes to the helmet there, which just looks so awkward. The original Princess Leia pop is still pretty decent, actually. There's been obviously newer Princess Leia pops, but this Princess Leia pop still looks pretty decent. And then we have the escape pod landing movie moments, which this is a perfect opportunity to talk about 2 characters that have singular pops, but makes sense to talk about them at this point for a moment, which I think they did this pretty well. I like the whole sand base because, of course, they are in Tatooine. You got the pod with the door open, and then 2 pops that are pretty good of R2-D2 and C-3PO.
So we have Darth Vader, which is the first Funko Pop for the Star Wars lineup. And this pop is definitely kind of a weird one, but I do think that there is some cool detail with the body. The head is all right, but I do like the newer sculpts that we have been getting. The Stormtrooper and this thing is hilarious to look at. It's so funny because the head shape, the way it's molded, is actually very, very good for staying true to being a Stormtrooper, but also being in that Funko Pop kind of stylized way. But the eyes just really do it for me, not having the kind of lenses, I guess it would be, on the helmet, and having just those Funko Pop eyes is so funny. But I do think it kind of gives this Funko Pop a little bit of charm, and the body looks great on this. The Princess Leia pop, and I actually do own this pop because DK had actually bought it for me, and this pop is pretty decent. I like this. It was one of my favorite Princess Leia pops at the time. Now I do think there are better ones, but this is just such an iconic look for Princess Leia, and I do really enjoy this pop. And then we have the escape pod landing, and this is a really cool looking pop. I love how this looks. I do think that R2D2 looks great like that. I like how he's posed with the 3 legs rather than kind of his standing with just using 2 of his legs and not the third smaller one. And then the C3PO looks great as well. I do like the way that he's posed, kind of having his finger pointing out, because this is when they're talking about which way they're going to go to figure out kind of where they're going. And then the base overall looks great as well. Obviously, you have the escape pod that is kind of smashed up and into the sand, and the sand base looks great. There isn't really much they could have done better with this pop movie moments.
After going their separate ways and getting captured by Jawas on Tatooine, C-3PO and R2-D2 end up getting sold to Luke Skywalker and his uncle Owen. When trying to fix R2-D2, Luke finds out about the hidden message stored in him from Princess Leia that is only allowed to be viewed by one Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Luke only knows of a Ben Kenobi. Luke gets saved by Ben Kenobi after getting attacked by a Tusken Raider, aka the Sand People, and finds out that Ben Kenobi is indeed Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan would tell Luke about fighting in the Clone Wars and how his father was once a Jedi Master who was killed by Darth Vader. Obi-Wan asked Luke to help him on his mission to Alderaan, but declines. However, Luke's mind changes once he witnesses his home destroyed due to an attack from the Galactic Empire, who are on the hunt for the droids. So the pops we'll talk about right now before moving on to the next section, we have the Jawa, which essentially are meter-tall, furry humanoids that take scrap metal and sell it to people. We got a Tusken Raider, which are essentially indigenous desert people. We have the Tatooine Luke Skywalker, which of course Luke Skywalker, he's a farm boy who lives with his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru on Tatooine and wishes to be a pilot. And then we also have the Obi-Wan Kenobi Tatooine remake that they just did within the last year. That's a pop and pin bundle exclusive to Amazon, which of course Obi-Wan Kenobi, also known as Ben Kenobi, a Jedi Master who lurks Tatooine, but ends up being Luke's trainer to be a Jedi. And then the last pop we're going to discuss about, which is a key part of A New Hope, is the holographic Princess Leia and R2-D2 2-pack, which was a San Diego Comic-Con 2017. I believe it was shared with GameStop exclusive, which of course involved with this is the message Princess Leia stored into R2-D2 involves the plans about the Death Star. And the message would end with the famous phrase, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." The Jawa pop is okay. I mean, especially for the longest time, we didn't get a new Jawa pop. We only had this one, whether you had it in the blue box or the re-release with the black box. This one is pretty decent. I kind of like how the eyes are in the way, because to me, they kind of look like diamonds and how kind of glossy it is compared to your normal Funko Pop eyes, especially the way that it shows it on the box. Also, the Tusken Raider, it's very surprising that we have not gotten a new Tusken Raider yet for Funko Pop, especially because Tusken Raiders appeared very frequently in the Book of Boba Disney Plus series, which I mean, I hope that they make new ones soon because I feel like that they can pull off a new one. But at the same time, though, the Tusken Raider, as terms to the Funko Pop, is one of those older Star Wars pops that actually still hold up to today and could like get away with still looking good if it was even a brand new character released in 2022. The Tatooine Luke Skywalker, which Luke Skywalker overall, it's crazy to see how he was or rewatch how he was in A New Hope, because he was kind of like a very bratty kind of immature kid. But then obviously you see him mature not only throughout this movie, but throughout the entire Star Wars franchise. I mean, for this specific scene with the lightsaber, it doesn't happen until, I guess, in the middle of the movie where he does the training, but he does hold the lightsaber actually as he's trying it out. So I guess it does fit in the scene, but we needed a Tatooine Luke Skywalker to kind of talk about as we describe about the character. But it's still a decent pop. The Obi-Wan Kenobi pop, the newer one, is actually pretty decent, almost similar to the older one that we had gotten, except I think they made the cloak that he's wearing a bit of a brighter brown, unlike the original one, and the fact that it has the kind of Tatooine style base there where it's all like grainy and it's supposed to look like sand, which I really enjoy that they did that with a lot of the newer Star Wars pops. And then the R2-D2 Princess Leia holographic 2-pack. This was a really cool 2-pack. I feel like, though, if this pop hadn't been made until now, I feel like they could have pulled it off more accurately if they would have done regular sized R2-D2 and then made the Princess Leia holographic pop more of like a pop and buddy, and you make it like a pocket pop size, just because of how accurate the scene would be where R2-D2 projects the holographic Princess Leia, and obviously it wouldn't be the same size as R2-D2, it'd be much smaller scale. So I think if they would have waited a little bit longer to do this, I think it would have made sense in that point. But of course, this was 2017. This was the 40th anniversary of Star Wars A New Hope, or Star Wars overall as a franchise. So I understand that obviously you would have a regular sized 4-inch pop of a holographic Princess Leia. Still cool that they made it, though. No complaints there.
The Jawa pop is a really cool Star Wars pop, and it definitely still does hold up today. Then we have the Tusken Raider, and this is one of, again, like a great pop that was great for back in the day. A lot of detail. The only gripes I have is that nowadays I think it would have looked a little bit dirtier, especially on the wrapping on the head. I think that would have been a little bit more like textured, and maybe the like actual outfit that he's wearing would have a little bit more texture too, rather than looking like just one flat piece of plastic, I guess you could say. But that being said, this pop is great. It is also posed a little bit, and that's great for way back when this pop came out. And I mean, just the detail in the rest of it is so cool, especially with his staff, I think is what it's called, something like that. It's great too. Then we have the Tatooine Luke Skywalker, and this isn't bad. There's not a whole lot I think you could do with this pop, especially back in the day when it came out. The arms kind of do look funny, how they're like so stiff and just out to the side, but I don't think this is a terrible pop. I do like that they at least added some detail in his blonde hair and didn't just leave it super flat. Then we have the Obi-Wan, and this is a pretty cool pop for the fact that it's kind of staying true to the older pops with the arms to the side. I do like that for this pop. And overall, there's a lot of good detail on it, and the base itself is really cool as well. It definitely looks a lot better than just having that like normal black base that we're used to seeing with Star Wars pops. And then lastly, we have the hologram at Princess Leia and R2-D2, and this is a really cool set. I remember when this was at our local GameStop, and I always wanted it, but for some reason I never bought it because I didn't think I was going to be collecting Star Wars pops at all back when this came out in 2017. But I do regret not buying it because this is a great looking set. But I do agree with DK that if this set would have came out in the year 2021 or 2022, that we probably would have seen a pocket pop sized Leia, and that might have been better. But again, I do really enjoy all the different Star Wars hologram pops, so that's pretty dang cool.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next section of the podcast, which will be titled Mos Eisley, or essentially it's a more fancier term of saying downtown Tatooine. Obi-Wan, Luke, C-3PO, and R2-D2 head to Mos Eisley on a speeder to seek assistance for a ship that can bring them to Alderaan. They are stopped by sand troopers, in which Obi-Wan would use mind tricks to pass through without being taken away. They meet smuggler Han Solo and his Wookiee co-pilot Chewbacca at a cantina, and would strike a deal of 17,000 credits for the job. Before that happens, Han Solo is stopped by bounty hunter Greedo, who wants Han to pay up for his debt that he owes to Jabba the Hutt. This leads to the famous shoot-off that still has people asking, who shot first, Han Solo or Greedo? So the pops discussed about right now, we have the Star Wars Smuggler's Bounty, Luke Skywalker with the speeder, which of course that was his vehicle throughout at least the first part of the movie. Then we got ourselves the New York Comic Con 2019 shared with Target exclusive Sand Trooper, which of course is a type of stormtrooper, but they primarily work in desert-like conditions. And of course, one gets fooled with Obi-Wan's Jedi mind tricks. Han Solo, he's a smuggler, of course, and his Wookiee co-pilot Chewbacca. And then we have the next pop is a movie moments exclusive to Walmart, and it is the Cantina Face-Off, which features, of course, Han Solo and Greedo. The Luke Skywalker with the speeder is a really cool pop rides. I do really enjoy it, especially with the details of how it's not essentially a mint conditioned vehicle. There are some dings and scuffs as terms to the paint job on the speeder. Then we got the Sand Trooper, which it was really cool when they came out with the Sand Trooper, especially because, first off, this is how a Stormtrooper should look like, not what the Stormtrooper looked like in the original Funko Pop. It was always really cool to see that scene of Obi-Wan Kenobi just use his Jedi mind tricks on the Sand Trooper to pass through. And I think the detail with all the dirt is such a great attention to detail. Both the Han Solo and the Chewbacca. So weird to see how like these have kind of evolved over time, but these are still cool. And then the Cantina Face-Off, which I'm glad that they ended up doing this. If we were here in 2022 and then this wasn't a thing, I'd be surprised that they didn't make it yet, but obviously 40th anniversary, they would have had to make it. And this is an excellent movie moments, probably one of the best movie moments as terms to Star Wars.
Luke with the sand speeder is definitely a really cool looking pop ride. I do like the fact that they added some kind of way of making it look like it is kind of beaten up and that there's paint chipped away on it. Though I think they probably could have done it better nowadays. Maybe it would have had some dents in it. I mean, there are a couple of dents that I can kind of make out on the pop, but I do think it would have looked better if they would have done it nowadays. And they stuck with the trend of having Luke's hair have a little bit of detail in it, which is great. My one gripe with this pop is that the actual base of sand, I guess, the poles that are attaching it, making it have the appearance of levitating, are done in that sand texture and color. So it probably would have been better if those would have been clear pieces of plastic rather than the sand color. But overall, I think that's just a minor gripe, and this is an awesome looking pop rides. Then we have the Sand Trooper pop, and this is one of my favorite Star Wars pops for sure. I love the way that they made it look like there's sand everywhere. The dry brushing on it is great. So that's really, really cool. This pop's awesome. Then we have the Han Solo pop, and this is not great. I will say that for sure. Very old looking Funko Pop, obviously, and the hair on this pop is terrible. I think that they didn't give him the streaks in his hair like Luke because he's got more of curly hair than Luke has, like more of a straight hair. So it would have looked a little bit weird if they would have just put the straight lines through his hair like they did with Luke. But obviously, they have done better head sculpts with Han Solo than obviously this original one, which is not great at all. Then we have the original Chewbacca, and I think this pop is pretty decent. Chewbacca is my favorite Star Wars character of all time, and I do like how this pop looks. I think that the texture in it and the dry brushing on it to give it a little bit more of a dimension to the colors, because definitely Chewbacca has a lot of different colors going on in his fur. It turned out really well. I like the way that he has his blaster like that, his bowcaster. That's decent. The pose is not a terrible gripe with this pop because Chewbacca doesn't really have a lot of dynamic posing, I guess, besides his bowcaster or having like his arms up in the air. Then we have the Cantina Face-Off, and this pop is amazing. If you look at the Han Solo, that's how they have to do his hair, and obviously they figured that out, and that is great. I love the way that he's posed with his one leg up on the table. The base itself is really nice. The Greedo pop isn't much different than the original Greedo, except it does look a little bit better with a little bit better of molding. Yeah, there is the Han shot first thing, which I kind of do believe that Han shot first, especially if you look back and see the different versions of what they changed when they did the DVD releases. So that will always be a debate, but I think that's a really cool thing about Star Wars.
After the shoot-off, the crew heads over to Han Solo's ship, the Millennium Falcon. Little do they know they were being followed by an Empire spy known as Garandin. A bunch of sand troopers start blasting away at the ship, but the crew manages to escape and start heading to Alderaan. The Millennium Falcon goes into hyperspace, and the crew realizes upon arrival that Alderaan no longer exists and has been blown to smithereens by the Death Star, orders that were sent by the commander of the Death Star, Grand Moff Tarkin. So we're talking about 3 pops here. First off being the Amazon exclusive Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon pop rides, or deluxe on a technicality, which of course the Millennium Falcon is Han Solo's prize ship that he brags about doing the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs with. Then we got Garandin, which is a secret spy of the Galactic Empire. And then last but not least, a very important character in A New Hope is Grand Moff Tarkin, which of course is a commanding officer of the Death Star and actually has a higher hierarchy than Darth Vader himself in the movie. So the Millennium Falcon, what a great pop that is. Both myself and MD Shady own this pop, and I didn't imagine it being as massive as it was when we ended up buying it in person. I think the actual measurement is that it's a 13-inch pop all the way around, which is pretty insane. It's hard to display this in box because of how massive the box is, but having it out of box, it's really cool to display. Then we have the Garandin, which only appears in the movie for literally 10 seconds, probably. So realistically, we didn't have to talk about it, but it is part of the storyline realistically. And I always found this character to be funny as terms to the way he speaks, because he's kind of got this weird language going on of like, wow, 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 wow. And I just thought it was always so funny to hear that and then have the stormtrooper or the sand troopers actually understand what he's saying. And then we have Grand Moff Tarkin, which was a Star Wars Smuggler's Bounty exclusive. I can't exactly remember what themed box they did that involved this character, but it was one of the better Star Wars Smuggler's Bounty boxes, to say the least. And it's cool that they made the character, and I do feel like eventually they would make another Grand Moff Tarkin.
Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon is an extremely cool looking pop, and you do have to display this out of box. I think in the box it does not look that great, but when you take it out of the box, it definitely has a lot of really cool detail. Obviously, the Millennium Falcon has so detailed to begin with that you can't really leave it out when you make a pop of rides of it. So that's really well. The base is also really cool because it's like part of the Death Star, and they went with the clear kind of tubing to hold it up. This pop's really cool. I wish that they could have come up with a way to also have Chewbacca in the ship, but I understand that it's a lot easier just to have Han like that. And overall, it does look pretty great. The Garandin, this is a pretty cool pop. I don't think it's extremely accurate to what his mask actually looks like in the movie, but I do think it's great that they made this pop because I could see them definitely passing over this pop. So it's cool that we got this, but I don't know. He's definitely not a super important character, and it doesn't look terrible. There are some cool detail, but I think it could have looked a little bit more accurate, at least in like the snout part of the mask. And then we have Grand Moff Tarkin, and this pop is pretty badass. I really like the way that they did the pose. I'm really happy that we got this pop when we did and not in like one of the first waves of Star Wars pops, because then his arms would have 100% just been down to the side and it would have looked ridiculous. Whereas this is perfect the way it looks. It's a simplistic pop, but it really does get the job done.
So now we're going to move on to the next section, the last section for this podcast before we list off what pops we want to see next in the A New Hope lineup. And that is, of course, the Death Star. So the Millennium Falcon lands inside of the Death Star. The entire crew manages to make their way through the station and go rescue the princess. Once they find Princess Leia, they can only escape by going through a garbage chute. Meanwhile, Darth Vader feels the presence of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which leads to the first lightsaber duel of the entire Star Wars franchise. The crew manages to escape the Death Star after the unfortunate death of Obi-Wan Kenobi by Darth Vader. The Millennium Falcon flies to a rebel base on Yavin 4 to construct a plan to destroy the Death Star. Han Solo and Chewbacca decide not to join the Rebel Alliance due to Han Solo wanting his pay and going back to Tatooine to pay off Jabba the Hutt. So at this moment, we'll talk about 2 movie moments that go well with this. First off being the Walmart exclusive Trash Compactor Escape movie moments, a part of the 40th anniversary set of Star Wars Pops, which of course in this moment, Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca go into a garbage chute and end up in a trash compactor. The walls start closing in before C-3PO and R2-D2 fiddle around with the system and stop it. And then, of course, we have to discuss about the Death Star duel movie moments, also exclusive to Walmart and a part of that 40th anniversary wave of Star Wars Pops, which, of course, it's the first ever lightsaber duel in the entire Star Wars franchise of Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan Kenobi. This features a well-known line from Darth Vader as he says, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." Darth Vader would then defeat Obi-Wan Kenobi. So these moments are really cool moments. I felt like, though, especially once again, I can't blame this because this was made in 2017, but let's say they didn't make this until 2022, let's say. This would have worked out with those new GameStop or Amazon deluxe pops where you connect pieces, because I think this would have worked well if you would have had 4 pieces. One has Luke, one has Leia, one's Chewie, and one is Han Solo. And then you would connect the pieces like that, especially if you had like Chewie with maybe part of like the wall with the door there and maybe with Han also, and then had exactly what you have with Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker in this moment here. But I do like the detail that they have. You have the abundance of garbage, and especially the one-eyed creature. And then the Death Star duel, which of course is a moment that needed to happen as terms to a movie moments. You got Darth Vader with the red lightsaber, Obi-Wan Kenobi with the blue lightsaber, and then just having a regular base the way it is, I think is perfectly fine. I mean, of course, you have an inbox. You do have the artwork going on in the background of the hallway, which I think would make up for it if you wanted more in this. And then it was always so odd to me in a way of the way that the lightsaber duel ended up turning out, because obviously he looks at Luke Skywalker, he as an Obi-Wan Kenobi, he lifts his lightsaber up and then Darth Vader just slashes him and then disappears in thin air there, which I always found odd, making me think like, did he on purposely want to die or was it just a mishap?
The trash compactor scene was always one of my favorite Star Wars scenes. I don't know why it was so captivating to me. Really enjoyed it, and I also really enjoy the pop that they made for it. I like that the base is kind of weird. It has some dings. It's an interesting base choice. The walls missing from this set, it doesn't really give it the intensity that it deserves, like how intense that movie moment is when you see it for the first time. But I do think it does look good how you have Leia, who's holding that long piece of metal that they end up kind of using to keep the walls from shutting. It does seem weird that it's only Leia and Luke in here and you don't see Chewie and Han as well. So I think that it definitely should have had all 4. Maybe we will see a re-release of this where it does have 4 separate pops that you do connect together. I really hope we do, because then that's probably when I would bite the bullet and get the trash compactor scene into my collection. And then we have the pops for the Death Star duel, and this is pretty good as well. It's pretty plain, but so was the lightsaber duel. So it's kind of interesting. I think it's done really well. They both have both hands on the lightsabers, which was also very funny to watch. Obi-Wan just kind of swinging a lightsaber around very weirdly in this first lightsaber duel, whereas if you see in the prequels, he's obviously like one of the best Jedis and can definitely whip out some moves for sure without having to have 2 hands on his lightsaber like that. And then to go off of what DK said, I think that, yeah, Obi-Wan kind of let Darth Vader win. And I think that's the fact of letting Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, and R2 and C-3PO get away safely before completely being like taken over. And then who knows what would have happened to them if that would have been the case. And it was interesting to see how he disappears, but that's not the only time we ever see that happen in Star Wars. So it is a thing that happens with maybe characters that are very strong in the Force would disappear like that instead of kind of just collapsing and having a corpse there. Overall, though, I do think that the Death Star duel is very iconic, and the pop that they made for it is also done really well, though it is kind of plain.
Once the plan is figured out, the Rebel Alliance head over to the Death Star in X-Wings to battle the Galactic Empire in TIE fighters. Luke Skywalker helps out as he flies an X-Wing, and we even see Darth Vader in a TIE fighter. The Rebel Alliance would win after Luke uses his instincts by turning off his targeting system, Han Solo coming back to shoot off a TIE fighter that bumps into Vader's ship, and then shooting directly into the area to destroy the Death Star. Princess Leia would honor both Luke Skywalker and Han Solo with gold medals for their courageous efforts in destroying the Death Star. So we got a total of 6 pops to end off this podcast. First off being the Walmart exclusive Luke Skywalker with X-Wing pop rides, which was a part, once again, of the 40th anniversary Star Wars set. Then we got ourselves the Target exclusive Darth Vader in TIE Fighter pop rides, also, once again, a part of that 40th anniversary set. And then we have a common TIE Fighter pilot with the TIE Fighter rides, once again, 40th anniversary set. And then the last 3 pops is right at the end of the movie. First off, we have the Yavin Princess Leia. That was an Amazon exclusive, a part of the, I can't even remember the set of pops that it was called. I think it was like Across the Galaxy, I believe the name was. And this is, of course, Princess Leia as she is awarding the gold medals to Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, which that is the last 2 pops. We have Ceremony Han Solo and Ceremony Luke Skywalker, both receiving the gold medals and are singular pops, and were Star Wars Celebration 2016 exclusive pops. First off, we got ourselves the X-Wing Luke Skywalker Deluxe, which this is really cool. We did get a singular pop of the Luke Skywalker with the X-Wing outfit, but I thought it was way better to obviously talk about him with the X-Wing, which was really cool to see Luke Skywalker kind of help out and shoot off any TIE fighters and any members of the Galactic Empire. It was a really cool scene. It was a very, if you look at the way that it was done, obviously you can tell like major green screen effect involving that scene there, but it still kind of holds up to today, even though that movie's been out for almost 45 years now. It still holds up to today in 2022. And it was still a really cool scene. And this pop, they executed it very well. The Darth Vader in the TIE Fighter is a pop that I have always wanted to have in my collection, but I've never really bitten the bullet to actually get this. But I always thought it was a cool scene to see Darth Vader in his ship, especially because comparing with, and I might as well talk both these at the same time, the TIE Fighter and the TIE Fighter with Darth Vader and his TIE Fighter, and how his TIE Fighter looks so much bulkier and more beefy compared to the TIE fighters that essentially any member of the Galactic Empire essentially drive. And I think that this Darth Vader pop is one of the better Darth Vader pops that we have. Then we got the final scene with Princess Leia ready to give out the gold medal. And then you have the basic Luke Skywalker and Han Solos where it's arms to the side, typical early pre-2017 pops where they didn't really have many poses. All of these are decent pops. The Princess Leia is pretty decent. And then the Han Solo and Luke Skywalker pops are okay. I'm surprised that they had made these pops back in the day. And it was funny when I was ready to make my list before rewatching the movie for what pops I want to see next. I was ready to write down Chewbacca with the gold medal, and then realizing when rewatching it, Chewbacca never got a gold medal, but Han Solo and Luke Skywalker did, which just ticked me off a lot. I'm like, how does Han Solo, who only appears literally in the last 30 to 45 seconds of this battle, get a gold medal along with Luke Skywalker? But I bet Chewbacca did just as much work as Han Solo did, at least in my opinion, and he doesn't get a gold medal, but yet Han Solo does. Obviously, it makes sense for Luke to get the gold medal because he was there the entire battle, but what the Star Wars? Like, that's my only gripe about that scene.
Luke Skywalker in the X-Wing is a gorgeous pop. I really, really enjoy this pop. I don't think it could have been done any better, but one thing that I think that could have maybe advanced this pop a little bit is if they gave us a chase version that was just simply an unhelmeted version, because I know that they did do a pop ride of Luke and Leia on the speeders in Endor, which had a chase version, which was pretty cool. So I don't see why they couldn't have done it with this one. And I think that would have just been a cool thing to do with a pop ride like this one. The Darth Vader looks fantastic in this. I love how they have the kind of hue of purple in the lenses of his mask. I think that's great. The TIE Fighter itself, looks pretty cool as well for being Darth Vader's TIE fighter. Just a really cool pop. And then we got the TIE fighter pilot in his TIE fighter. And this is very similar to the Darth Vader one. It's more of just a cosmetic change up, I guess you could say, with the different looking TIE fighter, your more common TIE fighter. And then the TIE fighter pilot, which looks pretty badass. I do like the way that they did that pop. So overall, these 3 pop rides are all great, especially for being kind of part of the same scene. Then we have the Princess Leia handing out the medals. Cool looking pop. I love the way that the hair is, the detail on that is great. The outfit is really good as well. Obviously, they give her the medal, which kind of needs to be done because it is at the ceremony. So overall, that's a pretty cool pop. And then we have the Han Solo and the Luke. These pops are okay. They do have that kind of weird posing for that old pops had, but I do think it's good that they made versions of these because the ceremony at the end of A New Hope was great. It's kind of the end of the film. Things are good. The Death Star is blown up.
All right, so now we're going to move on to discussing about Funko Pops that we want to see next for specifically this movie. It was actually very difficult because of the amount of pops that they have already done for just this movie alone. If we had done like the entire Star Wars franchise in a podcast, which would have been very difficult to discuss about, lowering down the amount of pops to discuss about for that, I think it would have been a little bit easier, but just talking about this movie, and there's already so many pops that have been made, it kind of narrows down exactly how many pops there could be left to make, which I'm going to start with mine first, mainly because I might have less than you. I had written down 4 pops, and I could have thought of 5, but I purposely put 4 pops because it is episode 4. So the first one is a movie moments of Darth Vader choking General Hux. I think it would have been cool to actually have that as a moments instead of Funko actually making a singular pop of General Hux, which I know we didn't discuss about on the podcast. The next one is a Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru 2-pack. I think it definitely makes sense. It's newer characters and it would just be them. I don't think it needs to be like a pop town. Next one I have is a Darth Vader with Star Destroyer pop rides. I think it definitely makes sense to have the Star Destroyer finally as a Funko Pop, and I'm surprised they haven't made it yet, especially we have the Falcon already made. And Darth Vader was my choice because another candidate I had for this, I have for essentially another pop that I'm about to talk about, and it would be the last pop. And then the last pop to fit the mold of A New Hope has to be a pop town of Grand Moff Tarkin with the Death Star. I think it definitely makes sense first to make a new Grand Moff Tarkin because some people might not have access to that Star Wars Smuggler's Bounty Grand Moff Tarkin. And I think with the amount of detail that even Funko still puts today more than what they would have put in 2017, they have really evolved as terms to detail in the pops and could make a really cool looking Grand Moff Tarkin. I'm surprised once again, how has the Death Star not been made into a Funko Pop even by itself?
Okay, I actually have 5 pops listed down. So DK is technically right. I do have more pops than him, but one of them is actually one of the pops that he had discussed. So I'll talk about that one first. And it is Owen and Beru. I think that there's a couple different ways they could do this. Obviously, you could just have them in a stationary 2-pack. You could have it be a town or maybe even just a deluxe pop. But I do think it would be cool if they did do it in a town and you could have both of them standing outside, or there could be the chase version where it is their corpses on the outside that are kind of smoked out. And I don't think that that's really a touchy subject. I think that that's just what happens. We've seen pops similar to that before. Then the next pop that I have is actually a 5-pack, and that would be Figrin Dawn and the Model Nodes, which is the Cantina band. There has been a Figrin Dan pop, but I do think that in a 5-pack would be maybe even if it was like a lights and sounds one where you could click a button and it played some of the Cantina music. I think that would be great, but a 5-pack of these figures would be so cool. I would really enjoy that. Next up, I have a deluxe pop of, I think his name is pronounced Wooer. He is the like bartender at the Mos Eisley Cantina. I think that that would be a really cool pop deluxe of kind of having the bar itself and all the weird looking Star Wars drinks, and then him just behind the bar serving some drinks up. I think that that would be an amazing deluxe pop. Then I have Cornelius Evazan, or Dr. Evazan, depending on how you like to say his name. But I think that that'd be a cool pop. Obviously, he is the character who says he doesn't like you. I don't like you either. That scene inside of the cantina. So I think that that'd be a cool looking pop because his face is kind of so deformed that I think in Funko Pop form, it would look very well. And then lastly, I have his kind of partner, Ponda Baba. And I think that this pop would need to 100% have a chase. We have seen a few Funko items of this character. There was the Pop Pez and also the Mystery Mini, but we haven't seen a pop yet, at least that has this name. There has been the like Walrus Man pop, but I don't really consider that a pop of Ponda Baba. And the chase would obviously have to be where he's missing his arm, because Obi-Wan cuts it right clean off. So I think that'd be really cool and definitely a chase I would have to be on the hunt for. So those are definitely some New Hope pops that I would personally love to see.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this week's podcast. If you enjoy this fandom-related podcast on Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, make sure you smash that like button. Comment in the comments section below and let us know what pops you want to see next in the Star Wars A New Hope lineup and your overall thoughts of the movie. Press the subscribe button for more content like this video in the future, and press the little bell beside it to be notified of when the future content gets released. And if you guys haven't yet, follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at A Funko Podcast. It'll be listed in the description below. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to this fandom-related podcast on Star Wars A New Hope, and we hope to see you guys next week on A Funko Podcast. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
But I was going to Tashi Station to pick up power converters. Peace in, peace out.